For 3 years, twin brothers, sons of a widowed millionaire, lived in complete silence after witnessing an irreparable tragedy. No doctor, therapist, or specialist was able to break the barrier that silenced them. Until a simple cleaning lady, mourning and singing softly, touched their hearts in an unexpected way. What happened at that moment changed the fate of the entire family and revealed the power of a love that heals without demanding anything in return. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The sprawling estate sat nestled in the exclusive enclave of Greenwich, Connecticut, where old money whispered, through manicured hedges and new fortunes, erected modern monuments to success. William Montgomery's mansion, a contemporary masterpiece of glass and stone, should have been filled with laughter and joy. Instead, silence hung over every room like a shroud. William, at 35, had everything money could buy. His investment firm had weathered economic storms that sank lesser companies. His name appeared regularly in financial magazines, but for 3 years, the self-made millionaire had been living his worst nightmare. His 5-year-old twin boys, Aidan and Ethan, hadn't spoken a word since witnessing their mother's tragic accident on the mansion's marble staircase. The boys had been just 2 years old when Catherine slipped on the wet steps after a housekeeper had mopped without placing warning signs. The trauma of seeing their mother unconscious had locked the twins in a prison of silence. The official diagnosis, after consulting countless specialists: severe trauma with extreme selective mutism. "Mr. Montgomery, I've called every child. Psychiatrist in the Northeast," said Diane, his assistant, standing in his home office doorway. "Dr. Levine from Boston Children's Hospital can't fit the boys in for another 3 months." William ran his hands through his dark hair, premature streaks of gray at the temples betraying his stress. 3 months? That's unacceptable. What about that specialist from Sweden? He reviewed their files but said he couldn't offer anything different from what we've already tried. The mansion felt like a mausoleum despite its modern design. Staff whispered as they moved through rooms, careful not to disturb the heavy quiet. The boys' nanny had resigned the previous week, unable to bear the sadness that permeated every corner. "One more thing," Diane said, hesitating. "Mrs. Peters from housekeeping has also given notice. Says the atmosphere is too depressing." William nodded, unsurprised. "Find a replacement. Someone who understands discretion and can maintain the quiet the specialists recommended." 2 days later, Emma Sullivan arrived at the service entrance of the Montgomery estate. At 29, her slender frame and gentle demeanor belied the weight she carried. Just 18 months earlier, she had been happily married, expecting her first child, and working as a kindergarten teacher. Then came the multi-car pileup on I-95 that took her husband James and, due to complications, the daughter they'd planned to name Lily. Medical bills and funeral expenses had drained their modest savings. The elementary school had been understanding, but Emma couldn't face a classroom of children after losing her own. Housekeeping jobs paid the bills while she pieced her life back together. "The twins rarely come downstairs," explained Mrs. Hendricks, the housekeeper manager, as she showed Emma around. "Mr. Montgomery insists on absolute quiet. The doctors believe any disruption could worsen their condition." Emma nodded, taking in the cold perfection of the mansion, museum-quality art on walls, furniture that looked never used, and a distinct absence of the clutter that typically marked a home with children. "Where are they now?" she asked softly. "Third floor east wing. They have a playroom, but they rarely use it. They just sit together, sometimes drawing, mostly staring. It breaks my heart." Mrs. Hendricks sighed. "Start with the main living areas. Mr. Montgomery is at the office until evening." Emma began dusting the living room's glass shelves, lost in her own thoughts when she found herself humming the lullaby she had practiced countless times during her pregnancy. The simple melody filled the sterile space barely above a whisper. She didn't notice the small figures at first, 2 identical boys in matching blue sweaters and khaki pants standing barefoot at the bottom of the grand staircase. Their hair, sandy brown and slightly too long, fell over curious eyes that watched her intently. When she turned and saw them, Emma's breath caught. They looked so vulnerable, so lost. "Hello there," she said gently, not expecting a response. "You must be Aiden and Ethan. I'm Emma." The twins exchanged glances but remained frozen in place. Emma continued her work, humming the lullaby again, as she moved around the room. From the corner of her eye, she saw the boys take tentative steps forward, then sit on the bottom stair, watching. On impulse, Emma walked to a bookshelf where she'd noticed some children's titles. "Do you mind if I read while I take a break?" she asked, selecting a colorful volume. Without waiting for an answer, she sat in a large armchair and opened the book. "Once upon a time," she began, giving different voices to each character, adding gestures and facial expressions, as she had done countless times in her kindergarten classroom. She didn't look directly at the twins, allowing them the safety of observation. Halfway through the story, Emma sensed movement. The boys had inched closer, now sitting just a few feet away on the plush carpet. Their eyes were wide, fixed on the book's illustrations and Emma's animated face. As she reached the story's climax, Emma heard something that made her heart stop. A whisper so faint she thought she'd imagined it. "Again," came the tiny voice from one of the twins. His brother looked at him in shock, then turned to Emma and echoed slightly louder, "Again, please." On the second floor, William was in the middle of a video conference when he heard what sounded like voices. Children's voices, coming from downstairs. The phone slipped from his hand, clattering on his desk as he bolted from his chair. Taking the stairs two at a time, he froze at the landing, gripping the banister for support. There in his living room were his sons, speaking. Actually speaking. Tears streamed down their small faces as they crowded near a woman he didn't recognize, who looked equally stunned. "Daddy," Ethan called, seeing him first. "Story lady." William. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. 3 years of specialists, therapies, and hopelessness shattered in an instant by 3 simple words. The new housekeeper looked up, her eyes meeting his. There was something in them, not pride or accomplishment, but recognition. Recognition of the pain, the journey, the precious fragility of this moment. As William finally found the strength to approach his sons, both boys reached for him, with one arm while keeping the other firmly wrapped around the woman who had somehow unlocked their voices. "She sings Mommy's song," Aiden whispered against his father's chest. William looked at the housekeeper questioningly through his own tears. "I was just humming a lullaby," she explained softly. "I didn't know," but something had broken free in the Montgomery mansion. Something that had been frozen for 3 long years had begun to thaw in the warmth of a stranger's gentle song. The Montgomery mansion transformed overnight, where silence had reigned supreme for 3 years. Now came the tentative sounds of childhood returning. Whispered questions, hesitant laughter, the patter of small feet on hardwood floors. William cancelled meetings and rearranged his schedule to work from home, unwilling to miss a single moment of what felt like a miracle unfolding. Emma arrived the next morning to find the twins waiting at the window, pressing small palms against the glass when her car pulled into the driveway. They met her at the service entrance, a breach of household protocol that made Mrs. Hendricks raise her eyebrows but say nothing. "Will you read again?" Aiden asked, his voice still raspy from disuse. "Please," added Ethan, clutching a different storybook than yesterday's. Emma glanced at Mrs. Hendricks, uncertain about her actual duties versus this unexpected development. "Mr. Montgomery left instructions," the older woman said, a hint of wonder in her voice. "You're to spend time with the boys as needed. Housekeeping duties are secondary." And so began a new routine. Emma would arrive each morning to eager faces. She'd read stories, play simple games, and always, always sing the lullaby that had somehow unlocked their voices. The twins followed her from room to room as she completed her chores, asking questions, helping with small tasks, speaking more with each passing day. By the end of the first week, William had witnessed a transformation he'd stopped believing possible. Dr. Patterson, the boys' primary psychiatrist, observed them interacting with Emma during an emergency house call. "I've never seen anything like it," he admitted to William in the privacy of the study. "It's as if a dam broke. The selective mutism is resolving faster than I would have thought possible. What's different about her? William asked, watching through the window as Emma and the boys planted flowers in small pots on the patio. We've had dozens of specialists, therapists trained specifically for childhood trauma. Dr. Patterson considered this. Sometimes it's not qualifications, but connection. Something about her resonated with them. Perhaps her authenticity. Perhaps the lullaby triggering a positive memory association. Whatever it is, I'd recommend maintaining this relationship. It's clearly therapeutic. William needed no convincing. He'd already doubled Emma's salary and modified her role to something between housekeeper and nanny, though neither title seemed adequate for what she had accomplished. Emma, for her part, felt herself healing alongside the twins. For months, after losing James and the baby, she'd moved through life like a ghost, performing necessary functions without truly engaging. Now, watching the boys emerge from their cocoons of silence, she felt purpose returning, and with it, painful emotions she'd suppressed. "My wife used to sing that same lullaby," William said one evening, finding Emma tidying the kitchen after the boys had gone to bed. It was Catherine's favorite. Her mother sang it to her, and she sang it to the twins from the day they were born. Emma's hands stilled on the dishcloth. "I didn't know. I can stop." "No," William interrupted quickly. "Please don't. It's good for them to remember her that way." He hesitated. "How did you come to know that particular melody? It's not a common one." Emma turned to face him, debating how much to reveal. Something about William's open expression, the vulnerability in his eyes, made concealment feel wrong. "I used to sing it to my daughter," she said quietly, "before she was born, during my pregnancy." Understanding dawned in William's eyes. "You have a child?" "No." The word fell between them, heavy with unspoken grief. "There was an accident. My husband and I, we lost everything." William moved to the kitchen island, indicating the stool beside his. "Tell me." And she did. About James, about their modest but happy life, about their dreams for the daughter they'd named Lily, about the icy January morning when multiple vehicles collided on the interstate, and how she'd woken up in the hospital to learn she'd lost both husband and child, about the crushing medical debt that forced her to sell their small home, about her inability to return to teaching. "I'm so sorry," William said when she finished, genuine compassion in his voice. "I had no idea you were carrying such a burden." Emma wiped away tears. "We all have our stories. Yours is no less painful, but you've somehow managed to bring light back into this house despite your own darkness," William said. "The boys were living statues before you came. Now they're children again." "They were always children," Emma corrected gently. "Just wounded ones. They needed someone who understood that healing isn't linear. Someone who could sit in silence with them without trying to force them to speak. Someone who understood grief," William added, reaching an important realization. The next day brought a breakthrough. Ethan, the quieter of the twins, approached Emma as she folded laundry. "Did your baby go to heaven like our mum?" he asked, his small face serious. Emma's hands trembled on the warm towels. She'd never discussed her loss so directly with the boys. "Yes, sweetheart. My baby girl and my husband." Aidan joined them, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "That's why you're sad sometimes when you think we're not looking." Children missed nothing, Emma realized. "Yes. Sometimes I get sad thinking about them." "We get sad about Mom too," Ethan confided. "But we couldn't talk about it. The words got stuck." He tapped his throat. "In here. We thought if we talked it would make Daddy cry more," Aidan added, "and that would be bad." Emma set the laundry aside and knelt to their level. "Talking about people we miss can make us cry, but that's not bad. Tears help heal our hearts." "Like rain helps flowers?" Ethan asked. "Exactly like that," Emma smiled. What she didn't know was that William stood just outside the doorway, listening to this exchange with his heart in his throat. The boys had worried about making him cry more. They had protected him at the cost of their own voices. The realization staggered him. That evening, after Emma had gone home, William sat with his sons for their bedtime routine, now filled with stories and conversation rather than the silent, mechanical process it had been for years. "I want you both to know something," he said, sitting between their beds. "It's okay to talk about Mom. It's okay if that makes us all cry sometimes. And it's okay to be happy again, too. Mom would want that more than anything." "Emma makes us happy," Aiden said simply. "She understands about heaven people." "Heaven people," William repeated, touching his son's cheek gently. "Can Emma stay forever?" Ethan asked, his eyes already heavy with sleep. "We need her." Long after the boys had fallen asleep, William remained in their room, contemplating his son's simple question. The truth was, Emma had become essential not just to the twins but to him as well. She had brought life back to a house that had become a monument to loss. For the first time in 3 years, William allowed himself to feel something beyond grief and responsibility. It wasn't just gratitude he felt toward Emma Sullivan. It was something more complicated, more frightening, and more hopeful than he had believed possible. As spring bloomed outside the mansion's windows, something else was beginning to flower within its walls, something none of them had been looking for, but all of them desperately needed. The guest room on the second floor became Emma's during the weekdays by William's insistence. The commute from her small apartment in Stamford was too long to make twice daily, especially when the boys refused to go to bed until she'd sung their lullaby. It was a practical arrangement that blurred the lines of her role in the household, no longer just an employee but not quite family. As April showers gave way to Mayflowers, the twins flourished. Dr. Patterson declared their progress remarkable, reducing their therapy sessions from twice weekly to once. They began asking about returning to kindergarten, something they had violently resisted after the accident. William enrolled them for the fall semester, cautiously optimistic. But as the boys' world expanded, Emma found herself increasingly troubled. Late one night, unable to sleep, she wandered the mansion's hushed corridors and found herself in Catherine's former studio, now a sitting room that William rarely entered. Family photographs lined the bookshelves, Catherine with the newborn twins, Catherine laughing on a beach, Catherine and William at their wedding. She was striking, tall and elegant with warm eyes and a generous smile. The kind of woman who would have excelled at motherhood, the kind of woman impossible to replace. She was extraordinary, William's voice came from the doorway, startling Emma. He stood in pajama bottoms and a Harvard t-shirt, his hair mussed from sleep. "Creative, brilliant, stubborn as hell." "I'm sorry," Emma apologized, embarrassed to be caught studying his late wife's photos. "I couldn't sleep." William entered, picking up a silver frame. "Don't be sorry. Catherine would have liked being remembered." He turned the photo toward Emma, Catherine painting with tiny toddler hands covered in finger paints. "She looks like she was wonderful with them," Emma said quietly. "She was." William replaced the photo. "But she would also be grateful that you're here now, helping them when they need it most." Emma sank onto a window seat, moonlight silvering her profile. "That's what I'm struggling with, William. What exactly am I to them? A substitute? A placeholder?" In recent weeks, they'd moved to first names, another boundary shifted by proximity and circumstance. "You're Emma," William answered simply, sitting beside her. "You're exactly who they need right now." "They called me Mommy yesterday," she confessed, the words barely audible, "when I was tucking them in. Aiden said, 'Night, Mommy,' and Ethan nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world." William was quiet for a long moment. "How did that make you feel?" "Terrified," Emma admitted. "Guilty, like I'm taking something that doesn't belong to me. Catherine is their mother. I'm just here temporarily." "Is that how you see it, as temporary?" Emma stood, moving to the bookshelves again, needing distance. "I have to. This isn't my family, William. I care deeply for the boys, but I'm still an employee. One day they won't need me anymore, or you'll meet someone who could be a real mother to them." Her voice cracked on the last words. William followed, turning her gently to face him. "Emma, look at me. The boys aren't confused about who their mother was. Catherine will always be their first mother, but that doesn't mean there isn't room in their hearts for you, too." "And what about your heart? The question escaped before she could stop it, hanging in the moonlit room. William's hands moved to frame her face, his touch featherlight. My heart stopped the day Catherine did. I never thought it would beat again, not fully. And then you came, and suddenly I found myself looking forward to mornings, noticing the smell of coffee, the sound of laughter, living again instead. Of just existing. Emma closed her eyes, torn between longing and fear. I'm scared, she whispered. What if this is just gratitude? What if we're both just filling voids? Maybe that's how healing starts, William suggested, his forehead touching hers. By filling voids until they're no longer empty spaces, but new beginnings. The moments stretched between them, charged with possibility. Then Emma stepped back, creating distance. I should go back to my room. William nodded, respecting her retreat. Of course. But something had shifted that night, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing for weeks. The next morning, Emma was unusually quiet, maintaining physical distance from everyone, including the twins. She completed her duties efficiently, but without the warmth that had become her trademark. The boys noticed immediately, following her with anxious eyes as she moved through the house. Are you mad at us? Ethan asked finally, his voice small as she prepared their lunch. Emma stopped, realizing her withdrawal was affecting them. No, sweetheart, never. You're different today, Aiden observed. You're not singing or laughing. Emma knelt to their level. I'm just thinking about some grown-up things. Sometimes adults get quiet when they're thinking hard. About your heaven family? Ethan asked with a child's directness. Emma swallowed. Partly, and about you and your dad, and how much you all mean to me. Oh, we love you, Aiden said simply. Daddy does too. He smiles different now. Children missed nothing, Emma thought again. Their honesty was both gift and complication. The pattern continued for days. Emma maintained gentle distance, still. Caring, still present, but holding part of herself back. William noticed but didn't press, giving her the space she seemed to need. Until one morning when Emma didn't appear at her usual time, Mrs. Hendricks received a text that she wasn't feeling well and would need the day off, the first she'd taken since joining the household. The twins were inconsolable. What if she never comes back? Aiden cried. Like Mom never came back? William tried reassurance, but their progress seemed suddenly precarious. They refused breakfast, withdrew to their room, and spoke in whispers to each other rather than engaging. By afternoon, William made a decision. He drove to Emma's apartment in Stamford, a modest one-bedroom in an older building she'd rented after selling her home. She answered the door in sweatpants and an oversized cardigan, surprise evident on her pale face. William, is something wrong? Are the boys okay? They miss you, he said simply, and so do I. She stepped back, allowing him inside the small space. Books filled every available surface, the only luxury in an otherwise sparse apartment. I needed a day to think, she explained, moving to the kitchenette to make tea with shaking hands. To get perspective. And did you? Get perspective? Emma turned, facing him directly. I've fallen in love with your children, William, and I think I'm falling in love with you too. That terrifies me, because I never planned for any of this. I was supposed to heal, find a teaching position again eventually, rebuild some kind of life. I wasn't looking to become part of someone else's family. What if it could be our family? William asked quietly. Not mine that you're joining, but something new we build together. Different from what you had with James, different from what I had with Catherine, but no less real. Emma's eyes filled with tears. How can you be so certain? We've known each other such a short time. Because I've lived through losing everything once, William said, moving closer. It teaches you to recognize what matters when you find it. Again. He reached for her hands, and this time Emma didn't pull away. The tea kettle began to whistle, ignored by both of them, as William lowered his lips to hers in a kiss that felt like coming home. Summer arrived in Connecticut with long, golden days that seemed to stretch endlessly. The Montgomery estate bloomed not just with flowers, but with renewed life. Emma returned to the mansion with William that evening, her doubts not entirely resolved. but her heart committed to the journey they were beginning together. The boys were overjoyed to see her, their relief palpable as they wrapped themselves around her legs. "We thought you got sick like Mom," Aidan whispered against her hip. "I'm here now," Emma reassured them, meeting William's eyes over their heads. "And I'm not going anywhere." They established a new routine. Emma continued working with the children during weekdays, but returned to her apartment on weekends, a boundary she insisted on maintaining. "We need to do this right," she explained to William. "For the boys' sake and our own, no rushing." William respected her caution. They had dinner together most evenings after the twins were asleep, talking for hours, discovering each other's histories, dreams, and quirks. Emma learned that William had built his investment firm from nothing after growing up in a middle-class Boston neighborhood. William discovered that Emma had put herself through college by working 3 jobs, the first in her family to earn a degree. The relationship deepened with each conversation, each shared silence, each mundane problem solved. Together, they were building something real, something lasting, or so they believed. Until the Saturday in late June when the doorbell rang unexpectedly, and Mrs. Hendricks showed an elegant silver-haired woman into the garden where William and Emma were watching the twins play in the sprinklers. "Mother," William said, standing quickly. "This is a surprise." Margaret Montgomery surveyed the scene with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "Clearly," she replied, her gaze lingering on Emma's casual sundress and bare feet in the grass. "This is Emma Sullivan," William said, his hand finding the small of Emma's back. "Emma, my mother, Margaret Montgomery." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Montgomery," Emma offered, suddenly conscious of her informal appearance. Margaret nodded coolly before turning to her grandchildren. "Aidan, Ethan, come give grandmother a proper hello." The twins, dripping wet and laughing, ran to her without hesitation, a stark contrast to their behavior during her previous visits when they had hidden behind furniture or refused to acknowledge her presence at all. "They're speaking," Margaret observed, genuine surprise softening her aristocratic features momentarily. "For several months now," William confirmed. "Emma has been instrumental in their progress." "Has she indeed?" Margaret's tone was measured as she allowed the boys to lead her to a garden chair. "And what exactly is Miss Sullivan's role here?" "The housekeeper, I was told." William's jaw tightened. "Emma is special to all of us, Mother. The boys adore her." "So I see." Margaret turned to Emma. "And your background is in—" "I was a kindergarten teacher before," Emma answered, meeting the older woman's assessing gaze directly. "Before?" "Before circumstances required a career change," William interjected. "Mother, let's not do this now. The boys are excited to see you. Why don't you tell them about your trip to Europe?" The afternoon progressed with superficial pleasantries layered over obvious tension. Margaret watched Emma's interactions with the children closely, noting their easy affection, the private jokes, the way they looked to her for approval and comfort. When the twins went inside with Mrs. Hendricks for their bath, Margaret finally addressed the elephant in the garden. "William, a word in private, if you don't mind." "Anything you have to say can be said in front of Emma," William replied firmly. "Very well." Margaret set down her iced tea. "You're making a grave mistake. These boys have experienced tremendous trauma. They're vulnerable, impressionable, and clearly seeking a maternal figure. This arrangement is inappropriate and potentially damaging." Emma felt heat rising to her cheeks. "Mrs. Montgomery." "Please," Margaret held up a manicured hand. "I understand grief creates voids. My son lost his wife. You've formed an attachment to my grandchildren, but let's be honest about what's happening. You're an employee who has overstepped professional boundaries, and my son is confusing gratitude with something more significant." William stood abruptly. "That's enough, Mother. You know nothing about our relationship." "I know opportunism." "When I see it," Margaret responded coldly, "a woman with no discernible prospects suddenly finding herself in the good graces of a wealthy widower and his impressionable children. It's a tale as old as time." Emma rose, trembling. "I should go." "Emma, wait!" William reached for her, but she was already moving toward the house. "I'll get my things and call a car," she said quietly. "It's better this way." "Listen to her, William," Margaret pressed. "She knows I'm right." William turned on his mother with barely controlled fury. "You have no idea what we've been through. Emma brought my children back from a place no specialist, no therapy, no amount of money could reach. She understands their pain because she's experienced loss that rivals our own. She has never, not once, asked for anything from me." Margaret was unmoved. "Your emotions are clouding your judgment. Think of what Catherine would want for her sons." "Catherine would want them to be loved," William said flatly. "To be happy. To speak and laugh and play again. Emma has given them all of that and asked for nothing in return." Inside the house, Emma moved quickly through the guest room she'd been using, stuffing clothes into her bag with shaking hands. Tears blurred her vision as Margaret's words echoed in her mind. Opportunist, taking advantage. She'd feared the same accusations herself in darker moments. A small sound at the doorway made her turn. The twins stood there in their bathrobes, wet hair sticking up in all directions, faces crumpled in confusion. "Are you leaving?" Ethan asked, his voice wobbling. Emma wiped her eyes quickly. "Just for a little while, sweetheart." "Grandma was mean to you?" Aidan said with a child's perception. We heard her loud voice. "Your grandmother loves you very much," Emma said carefully. "She wants what's best for you." "You're what's best," Ethan insisted, rushing forward to wrap his arms around her waist. Aidan followed immediately, clinging to her other side. Emma knelt, hugging them close, inhaling the clean soap smell of them. "I love you both so much," she whispered. "Never forget that." "Then don't go," Aidan pleaded. "Stay and be our new mum." The words pierced Emma's heart. "It's complicated." "Honey." "Because of Grandma?" Ethan asked. "Because grown-ups sometimes need time to figure things out," Emma explained, smoothing his damp hair. Footsteps in the hallway announced William's approach. He stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Emma kneeling, the boys wrapped around her, all three with tear-streaked faces. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, Emma said, not meeting his eyes. William entered the room, closing the door behind him. "I'm not letting you leave. Like this." "Your mother's right about one thing," Emma said, gently disengaging from the twins. "We moved too fast. The boys are vulnerable. They need stability, not confusion." "This isn't confusion," William insisted. "This is family. The family we've been building together." "Please," Emma's voice broke. "Don't make this harder. Your mother will always be in their lives. If she sees me as an opportunist, it will create conflict that will hurt everyone, especially Aidan and Ethan." "I don't care what my mother thinks," William said forcefully. "But I do," Emma countered. "Because she's part of your lives forever. I'm still an outsider." William crossed the room, kneeling beside her and the twins. "You stopped being an outsider the moment you walked through our door and brought music back into this house." Emma closed her eyes briefly. "I need time, William, space to think." "Take all the time you need," he said softly. "But please don't just disappear. The boys couldn't bear it." He paused. "Neither could I." Outside, a car horn sounded discreetly. Emma stood, picking up her hastily packed bag. The twins began to cry in earnest now, clinging to her legs. "I'll call tomorrow," she promised them, her heart breaking. "And maybe we can meet at the park this weekend." "Promise?" Ethan demanded, his small face fierce through his tears. "I promise," Emma said, bending to kiss each tousled head before looking finally at William. "I just need some time." As Emma walked down the sweeping staircase, Margaret Montgomery stood in the grand foyer, watching her departure with an unreadable expression. Emma straightened her shoulders, refusing to be intimidated despite her red eyes and rumpled clothes. "Mrs. Montgomery," she acknowledged with quiet dignity as she passed. The older woman said nothing, but her gaze followed Emma until the heavy front door closed behind her. In the growing dusk, Emma's car pulled away from the mansion that had begun to feel like home. Behind her, through the upstairs window, twin faces pressed against the glass, small hands waving desperately as silent tears streamed down their cheeks. 3 days passed like an eternity. Emma maintained contact with the twins via brief video, calls that left everyone more heartbroken than before. The boys retreated inward, speaking less each day, their hard-won progress slipping away like sand through fingers. They refused breakfast again, Mrs. Hendricks reported to William on the 4th morning. Ethan asked if Miss Emma left because they called her Mommy and made her sad. William pressed his palms to his eyes, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. He hadn't slept properly since Emma's departure, alternating between respecting her request for space and fighting the urge to drive to her apartment and beg her to return. What did you tell him? That Miss Emma loves them very much and needs some grown-up time, Mrs. Hendricks replied. But sir, they're not buying it anymore. They know something's wrong. William nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Hendricks. I'll speak with them. Upstairs, he found the boys in their playroom, listlessly pushing toy cars across the carpet without their usual sound effects or imagination. Hey guys, William said, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside them. Can we talk? Twin gazes, wary and wounded, met his. They looked smaller somehow, as if they were physically shrinking with each day of Emma's absence. Is Emma coming back today? Aidan asked, the hope in his voice making William's chest ache. I don't know, buddy. I hope so, but it's complicated. Because Grandma doesn't like her, Ethan stated flatly. William considered how to explain adult relationships to 5-year-olds who had already experienced more emotional complexity than most adults. Grandma doesn't know Emma like we do. She's worried because she loves you and wants to make sure you're okay. But we're not okay without Emma, Aidan protested, lower lip trembling. We need her. I know, William admitted. I need her too. Meanwhile, across town, Margaret Montgomery sat in her hotel suite, reviewing the report that had just been hand-delivered by a discreet private investigator. She'd commissioned the background check on Emma Sullivan immediately after leaving the mansion, convinced the young woman was hiding something. The file contained Emma's life history in clinical detail. Her modest upbringing in a small Connecticut town, her academic scholarships, her marriage to James Sullivan, an elementary school music teacher, their combined income, their mortgage application, their health insurance claims, including the complications from the pregnancy after the accident. Margaret frowned, scanning the hospital records more carefully. Emma had been 8 months pregnant when the multi-vehicle collision occurred. Her husband had died at the scene, while Emma had been rushed to surgery after sustaining injuries that triggered premature labor. The baby girl, delivered via emergency C-section, had lived for only 2 hours. Further pages detailed Emma's subsequent medical bills, the loss of their home, her retreat from teaching. Everything verified the story William had defended so passionately. There were no secrets, no hidden agendas, just unimaginable loss and the struggle to rebuild a shattered life. The telephone interrupted Margaret's thoughts. She answered, to hear William's voice tense and urgent. Mother, we need to talk. I was about to call you, she replied, surprising him. There are things I need to say. An hour later, they sat across from each other in Margaret's hotel suite, the investigators. File between them on the coffee table. You had her investigated? William's voice vibrated with controlled fury. Without my knowledge or consent? I did what any responsible parent would do, Margaret replied calmly. You have a position to protect. The boys have their mother's trust fund. It would be irresponsible not to verify Miss Sullivan's background. William laughed bitterly. And what did you find in your witch hunt? That she's exactly who she said she was? A woman who lost everything and still had enough heart left to save my children when no one else could. Margaret was silent for a moment, fingering the edge of the folder. I made a mistake, William. The simple admission caught him off guard. Margaret Montgomery rarely acknowledged error. The investigator found nothing questionable, she continued. In fact, Miss Sullivan appears to have refused several opportunities for financial assistance from her late husband's family. She's been paying medical bills that should have been covered by insurance, but were denied due to technical complications. She works multiple jobs on weekends to make ends meet. William closed his eyes briefly, imagining Emma returning to her empty apartment after spending days bringing life and love to his family, only to work additional hours while he and the boys enjoyed the luxury of his fortune. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally. "Because I was wrong," Margaret said simply. "My judgment was clouded by fear. Fear that she might be using the twins' vulnerability. Fear that you were making decisions based on gratitude rather than genuine emotion." She paused, "And perhaps fear of being replaced in their lives." William softened slightly. "No one could replace you, Mother. You're their grandmother, Catherine's legacy to them." "And Miss Sullivan?" "Emma," William corrected gently, "has created her own place in our lives. Different from Catherine's, different from yours, but equally essential now." Margaret nodded, accepting this. "Then I owe her an apology. Where is she? When will she return to the house?" William's expression darkened. "I don't know. She's not answering my calls today." A knock at the suite door interrupted them. Margaret's assistant entered, her face uncharacteristically worried. "Mr. Montgomery, there's an urgent call from Stamford Hospital. They've been trying to reach you." William felt the blood drain from his face as he grabbed the phone. The conversation was brief, clinical, and terrifying. Emma had been admitted with severe dehydration and apparent emotional distress. She'd collapsed at her weekend job, and the hospital had found his contact information in her phone's emergency contacts. Within moments, William was rushing toward the elevator, Margaret following close behind. "What happened?" she demanded. "Emma's in the hospital," he replied tersely. "She's been working herself to exhaustion, not eating, not sleeping properly." The guilt in his voice was palpable. "I should have seen it. She was carrying so much, her own grief, the boys' needs, my expectations. And then your accusations broke what little stability she'd built." Margaret touched his arm. "I'm coming with you." "That's not necessary." "It is," Margaret insisted, "both to support you and to make amends." The drive to Stamford Hospital passed in tense silence. When they arrived, William charged through the emergency department entrance, while Margaret followed at a more measured pace, observing her son's frantic concern with new understanding. Dr. Patel met them in a quiet consultation room. "Miss Sullivan is stabilized but weak. She's suffering from exhaustion, dehydration, and what appears to be an emotional breakdown. Has she been under unusual stress recently?" "Yes," William admitted, self-recrimination evident in his voice. "Significant stress." She keeps asking, "About the boys. Are these her children?" the doctor inquired. "My sons," William clarified. "She's very important to our family." Dr. Patel nodded, making notes. "She seems deeply concerned about them. When can she see them?" was her first question upon regaining consciousness. "Can I see her now?" William asked. "Briefly, she needs rest more than anything." William found Emma in a private room, looking small and pale against the white hospital bedding. Her eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, widened when she saw him. "William," she whispered, "the boys are worried about you," he finished, taking her hand gently. "As am I." "I'm sorry," she said, tears forming. "I didn't want to worry anyone. I couldn't." "Shh," William soothed, brushing hair from her forehead. "You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who's sorry, for not protecting you, for not seeing how much you were struggling." Emma shook her head weakly. "I wanted to be stronger. For the boys. For you." "You're the strongest person I've ever known," William said firmly. "But even the strongest people need support." A gentle knock at the door made them both turn. Margaret stood in the doorway, her usual commanding presence, somehow subdued. "May I come in?" she asked, directing the question to Emma rather than William. Emma's hand tightened in William's, but she nodded. Margaret approached the bed, her expression softer than William had seen in years. "Miss Sullivan, Emma, I owe you an apology. My concerns about your relationship with my son and grandsons were misplaced and hurtful." Emma watched her warily, too tired for pretense. "The truth is," Margaret continued, I was afraid of change. Afraid that as the boys bonded with you, there would be less room in their lives for memories of Catherine and for me. Mrs. Montgomery, Emma said softly, there's always room for more love. It doesn't replace what came before. Something shifted in Margaret's eyes, recognition perhaps of the wisdom in this simple statement. I'm beginning to understand that, she acknowledged. William tells me you've brought life back to a home that had become a shrine to grief. For that alone, I should have welcomed you. Emma's eyes filled with fresh tears. I never wanted to take anyone's place. You haven't, William assured her, still holding her hand. You've created your own place, one that was empty until you came. Margaret stepped closer. My investigator discovered your financial situation, she said bluntly. The medical bill's the second job. Emma flushed. That's private. And unnecessary, Margaret interrupted. If you're to be part of this family, those burdens should no longer be yours alone. Emma looked between mother and son, confusion evident. If I'm to be part of our family, William repeated, reaching into his pocket. I had planned something more romantic, but perhaps this is perfect in its own way. He opened his hand to reveal a vintage emerald ring. This was my grandmother's. I've been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Emma stared at the ring, then at William's face. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you, William said simply. The boys love you, even my mother is coming around. He glanced at Margaret, who offered a small but genuine smile. I'm asking you to come home, not as our employee, not as our savior, but as my wife and the boys' second mother. Emma's tears flowed freely now. William, you don't have to do this. I know, he agreed. That's why it's real. Because I don't have to. I want to. We all do. Dr. Patel chose that moment to return, stopping short at the tableau before him. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Miss Sullivan needs rest. William nodded, reluctantly releasing Emma's hand, but leaving the ring on her bedside table. Think about it, he said softly. We'll be waiting when you're ready to come home. As William and Margaret left the hospital together, an unexpected peace existed between them. She'll say yes, Margaret predicted. She loves you and those boys too much to say anything else. William looked at his mother curiously. When did you become so certain? When I saw her face as you walked into that hospital room, Margaret replied. That's not the look of an opportunist, William. That's the look of a woman who has found her family. Emma returned to the Montgomery estate 3 days later, not as an employee, but as William's fiancée. The transformation was subtle but significant. Her belongings moved to the master suite, her opinion sought on household decisions, her place at the dining table permanently established beside William rather than with the staff. The twins' reaction to the news of the engagement had been pure joy. They'd bounced on their beds, whooping with delight, when William explained that Emma would be staying forever, becoming their new mom while always honoring the memory of Catherine. Does this mean we can call you Mom for real now? Aidan had asked Emma, his eyes serious despite his excitement. Emma had gathered both boys close. If that feels right to you, I would be honored. But it's okay if you need time, or if you want to keep calling me Emma. Mom, Ethan had tried experimentally, tasting the word. Emma Mom. I like that, Emma had laughed, tears in her eyes. Emma Mom it is. The household settled into new patterns, but recovery wasn't instant or linear. The boys still had moments of withdrawal, particularly when overtired or stressed. One evening in late July, Aidan woke screaming from a nightmare, refusing comfort from anyone except Emma. He was dreaming about the accident, she explained later to William as they sat on the terrace after the twins had finally fallen back, asleep. Not Catherine's, ours. The boys somehow merged our stories. He dreamed I fell down the stairs like Catherine and no one could save me. William took her hand. They're still processing everything. Dr. Patterson says it's normal for their anxiety to manifest this way. I know, Emma sighed. I just hate seeing them afraid. They're healing, William assured her. We all are. The engagement announcement appeared in the Greenwich Society pages, raising eyebrows among those who remembered Catherine and stirring inevitable gossip. Margaret, surprising everyone, became Emma's fiercest defender in social circles, shutting down speculation with icy precision. "My son has chosen a remarkable woman who brought my grandsons back from an abyss no amount of money or privilege could reach," she informed one particularly persistent socialite at a charity luncheon. "I suggest you celebrate their happiness or keep your opinions to yourself." Emma and Margaret developed an unexpected alliance, navigating their new relationship. With mutual respect, if not immediate warmth, Emma understood the older woman's initial protectiveness. Margaret appreciated Emma's unwillingness to erase Catherine from the family narrative. In early August, they held a small civil ceremony at City Hall, just the immediate family and Mrs. Hendricks as witness. The boys dressed in matching navy suits, proudly carrying the rings on tiny velvet pillows. "I never thought I'd feel joy like this again," William told Emma as they signed the marriage certificate, making official what their hearts had known for months. "Neither did I," Emma admitted, her simple cream dress and fresh flowers a deliberate contrast to what she imagined had been Catherine's grand wedding. This was a new beginning, not a replacement. But transitions, even joyful ones, bring challenges. 2 days after the civil ceremony, Ethan experienced a setback. He overheard Emma humming the lullaby while folding laundry, but when he entered the room and found her alone, without his brother or father nearby, something triggered a panic response. He ran to his room, locked the door, and refused to come out or speak. William was in New York for the day, unreachable during a critical investor meeting. Mrs. Hendricks tried coaxing the boy with promises of cookies. Even Margaret, who was visiting for the week, attempted to reason with her grandson through the door. Nothing worked. Emma sat on the hallway floor outside Ethan's room, leaning against the wall. "It's okay to be scared, Ethan," she said gently. "I get scared sometimes too." Silence answered her. "Did you know that lullaby I was singing, the one your first mom sang to you, was the same one I used to sing to my baby before she was born?" Emma continued. "I think that's why you and Aiden responded to it. Some part of you remembered feeling safe when you heard it." A small shuffling sound came from inside the room. Emma took it as encouragement. "Healing isn't a straight line. Ethan, it's okay to have good days and bad days. It's okay to miss your mom and love me too. It's okay to worry that people you love might disappear." The door cracked open an inch, revealing one blue eye peering out. "But I promise you this," Emma said, making no move to enter, respecting his space. "I will always be honest with you. I will never leave without saying goodbye. And I will do everything in my power to stay with you for a very long time." The door opened wider. Ethan stood there, tear-streaked and rumpled. "Promise?" he whispered. "I promise," Emma assured him. "And you know what? Your dad and Aiden and Grandma Margaret make the same promise. We're all here for you, even on the hard days." Ethan launched himself into Emma's arms, his small body shaking with sobs. "I got scared when I heard the song without you singing it," he admitted, "like it was a ghost song." Emma held him close. "It's not a ghost song, sweetheart. It's a love song. From your first mom, from me, from everyone. Who's ever loved a child?" When William returned that evening, he found Emma, Ethan, and Aiden curled together on Ethan's bed, a children's book open across their laps. Emma was teaching them to read the lullaby's lyrics from a handwritten page. She'd added to the book. "What's happening here?" he asked, smiling at the tableau. "Emma Mom is making the scary song not scary," Aiden explained matter-of-factly. "By giving it words we can see," Ethan added, "so it's not just in our heads." William met Emma's eyes over the boys' heads, understanding, dawning. She'd taken a trigger and transformed it into a tool for healing. That night, after the twins were asleep, William found Emma in Catherine's former studio. She'd been gradually making changes to the room, adding her books to the shelves, replacing formal furniture with cozier pieces. But she'd kept the photographs, even adding new frames containing pictures of the boys with both women, Catherine, holding them as infants beside a recent image of Emma, helping them build a sandcastle. You handled Ethan's setback beautifully today, William said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Emma leaned into his embrace. I'm learning as I go. We all are. That's what family is, William murmured against her hair. Learning together, falling down, helping each other up. Emma turned in his arms. I have news, she said, a mixture of nervousness and wonder in her voice. I wasn't sure if it was the right time to tell you with everything else going on, but William waited, eyebrows raised questioningly. I'm pregnant, Emma whispered. About 6 weeks. I took a test yesterday and saw the doctor this morning while you were in the city. William stared at her for a moment, processing. Then a smile broke across his face like sunrise. We're having a baby. Emma nodded, tears shimmering. Are you happy? Is it too soon? The boys are still adjusting and William silenced her with a kiss. It's unexpected and perfect, he said when they broke apart. Just like everything else about us. How do we tell the boys? Emma worried. I don't want them to feel replaced or... They won't, William assured her. They'll be big brothers, something they've never experienced. It'll give them a new role, a new way to grow. The next morning, they gathered the twins for breakfast on the patio, an unusual treat that signaled something special was happening. We have something important to tell you, William began, holding Emma's hand on the table. The boys looked between them expectantly, identical expressions of curiosity on their small faces. Emma and I are going to have a baby, William continued, which means you two are going to be big brothers. The twins were silent for a moment, processing this information. Will it be a boy or a girl? Aidan asked finally. We don't know yet, Emma answered. We won't find out for a while. Ethan's brow furrowed in thought. Where will the baby sleep? In the nursery down the hall from our room, William explained. We'll decorate it together. The boys exchanged one of their twin looks, communicating silently as they often did. Then Ethan asked the question that had been worrying Emma most. Will you still be our Emma mom even with your own real baby? Emma reached across the table, taking each boy's hand. Listen to me, both of you. You are my real children. This baby won't change that. Love doesn't divide when a family grows. It multiplies. Aidan brightened. Like in math class. If you have 2 cookies and get 2 more, you have 4 cookies. Exactly, Emma laughed, relieved at their acceptance. More cookies for everyone. Can we help with the baby? Ethan asked, enthusiasm growing. Can we teach it stuff? That's the best part about being big brothers, William said. You get to be teachers and protectors and friends. As summer faded into fall, the Montgomery family found its rhythm. The twins started kindergarten, thriving in the structured environment with occasional supportive therapy sessions. Emma's morning sickness subsided, and her pregnancy began to show. William balanced work with more family time than he'd ever allowed himself before. They weren't perfect. There were still difficult days, moments when the twins withdrew or acted out, times when Emma felt overwhelmed by the responsibility of mothering children who carried such complex emotional histories, occasions when William struggled to balance his roles as father, husband, and CEO. But as Margaret observed during her increasingly frequent visits, they had become something remarkable, not despite their shared losses, but because of how those losses had taught them to cherish what they'd found together. The holidays approached, bringing both anticipation and anxiety. It would be their first Christmas as a blended family, the first anniversary of Catherine's passing that the twins would face with the ability to express their feelings verbally, and Emma's second trimester with increasingly visible evidence of new life growing. I want it to be special for them, Emma told William as they sat in the kitchen late one evening in early December. But I don't want to override traditions they had with Catherine. William's expression softened. Catherine loved Christmas, the decorations, the music, the whole production. We always had a massive tree in the foyer, professional decorators, caterers for a big Christmas Eve party. That sounds wonderful, Emma said carefully. Should we continue those traditions? William considered this. Some of them, yes. But I think we should create our own traditions too. The boys don't actually remember much from before. They were too young. They decided on a blend, keeping the grand tree in the foyer, but decorating it themselves as a family, maintaining some of Catherine's favorite ornaments while adding new ones that reflected their evolving family. Instead of a formal Christmas Eve gathering, they planned a smaller celebration with just Margaret, Mrs. Hendricks, and Diane, William's loyal assistant, who had become like family. As the holiday approached, Emma found herself drawn more frequently to Catherine's studio, now a family reading room. She often stood before the photographs, studying the woman who had come before her, whose absence had created the void she now filled. "I wish I had known you," she whispered one afternoon, touching the frame of Catherine's wedding portrait. "I wish I could ask you about the boys, about their first words, about what made them laugh as babies." "She would have liked you," Margaret's voice came from the doorway, startling Emma. The older woman entered, elegant as always in a cashmere sweater and pearls. Over the months, her relationship with Emma had evolved from wary respect to genuine affection. "You think so?" Emma asked, unconsciously resting a hand on her growing belly. "I know so," Margaret said with surprising certainty. Catherine valued authenticity above all else. It's why she and William worked so well together. Neither had patience for pretense. She joined Emma before the photographs. "You have that same quality." Emma smiled gratefully. "Thank you for saying that. Sometimes I still feel, I don't know, like an intruder in someone else's story." "You're not an intruder," Margaret corrected gently. "You're the next chapter." She touched a photograph of the twins as toddlers. Catherine would be grateful that her sons have found love again, that they speak and laugh, that they're becoming the boys she always believed they would be. The week before Christmas brought a snowstorm that blanketed Greenwich in pristine white. The twins were beside themselves with excitement, bundled in matching snowsuits as they built lopsided snowmen and engaged in giggling snowball fights with their father. Emma watched from the window, hands cradling her belly, where the baby had just delivered a series of enthusiastic kicks. The scene before her, William chasing shrieking, laughing boys across the lawn, seemed impossibly precious, a gift she never expected to receive. "Your big brothers are silly," she murmured to her unborn daughter. They had learned the baby's sex just days earlier, the news greeted with exuberant celebration by the entire family. That evening, after hot chocolate and stories by the fire, an unexpected moment of grief emerged. As Emma tucked the twins into bed, Aidan suddenly asked, "Do you think our first mom can see us from heaven?" The question, delivered with a child's directness, momentarily stole Emma's breath. "I believe she can," she answered carefully. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "Because Christmas was her favorite," Ethan supplied. "Daddy told us, and we want her to see our tree." Emma sat on the edge of Aidan's bed. "I think she sees everything you do. I think she's very proud of you both." "Would she be mad that we—" "Have you now?" Aidan asked, the worry evident in his small voice. "No," Emma said firmly. "Not at all. Moms want their children to be loved and happy. Your first mom would be glad you have people who love you." "Like you have your heaven baby watching our baby sister grow?" Ethan asked, making connections in the way children often do, directly, without filtration. Emma felt tears prick her eyes at the unexpected reference to the daughter she'd lost. "Yes, exactly like that." "We could make an ornament for your heaven baby," Aidan suggested, sitting up eagerly. "And one for our first mom, so they're both on our tree." Emma pulled both boys into a hug, overwhelmed by their compassion. "That's a beautiful idea." The next day they crafted special ornaments, a delicate glass ball filled with tiny pink roses for Emma's daughter Lily, and a silver star with Catherine's name etched in childish handwriting. William, finding them at the craft table surrounded by glitter and ribbon, had to turn away briefly to compose himself before joining their project. On Christmas Eve, snow fell again, transforming the estate into a winter wonderland. The house, once cold and silent, now hummed with life. Christmas music playing softly, delicious smells wafting from the kitchen where Emma and Mrs. Hendricks prepared dinner, excited childish whispers about Santa's imminent arrival. Their small gathering assembled in the dining room, Margaret resplendent in crimson, Mrs. Hendricks and Diane honored to be included as family, the twins barely containing their excitement in their Christmas sweaters, William and Emma exchanging glances of quiet joy across the table. "Before we eat," William said, standing at the head of the table, "I'd like to propose a toast." He raised his glass. "To family, those present, those absent, and those yet to join us." His eyes rested briefly on Emma's rounded belly. "To love that doesn't replace what we've lost, but builds something new from the ashes of grief." "To family," they all echoed, even the twins with their sparkling cider. After dinner came the long-established tradition of opening one gift each on Christmas Eve. The boys tore into packages containing new pajamas, a practical tradition from Catherine's family that William had maintained. "There's one more special gift tonight," William announced, bringing forward 2 small boxes identical in size and wrapping. The twins opened them simultaneously, revealing matching silver frames. Inside each was a photograph of Catherine holding them as newborns, beside a recent picture of the 4 of them, William, Emma, and the twins, laughing in the garden last summer. "Your mum will always be part of you," William explained, gently. "And Emma will always be here now too. Both love you more than words can say." The boys studied the frames with unusual solemnity before carefully placing them on their bedside tables, physical representations of their complex, beautiful family story. Later, with the twins finally asleep after multiple reminders about Santa's preference for sleeping children, William and Emma stood before the Christmas tree in the darkened foyer. Only the colored lights illuminated the space, casting a magical glow across the ornaments. Store-bought and handmade, old and new, each representing a piece of their collective history. "Are you happy?" William asked softly, his arm around Emma's waist. She leaned against him, contemplating the question. Happiness seemed too simple a word for the rich tapestry of emotions that composed their life together. "I'm grateful," she answered finally, "for the pain that brought me here, for the love I never expected to find again, for the chance to help those boys heal while healing myself." William kissed her temple. "You gave us all a second chance." "We gave each other second chances," Emma corrected. "The boys, you, me, even Margaret, we're all learning that love doesn't have to be perfect to be exactly what we need." The baby chose that moment to deliver a particularly energetic kick that William felt against his side. They both laughed, hands joining over Emma's belly. "Someone's excited about her first Christmas," William observed. "Or reminding us she exists even though she's not here yet," Emma suggested. "Middle child syndrome already." As if in response to her mother's voice, the baby settled. Emma began to hum softly, the lullaby that had first connected her to the twins, the melody that had unlocked their silence. "That song," William murmured, "it's become the anthem of our family." "A bridge between past and present," Emma agreed, "between sorrow and joy." On Christmas morning, the house erupted with the gleeful chaos only children can create. The twins bounded into their parents' room at an ungodly hour, bouncing on the bed with exuberant announcements about Santa's generosity. The day unfolded in a blur of torn wrapping paper, delighted exclamations, festive food, and cozy togetherness. By evening, the twins were happily exhausted, playing with new toys while the adults relaxed by the fire. "I have one more gift," William said quietly to Emma, handing her a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with 3 birthstones, 2 matching ones representing the twins, and a third for their daughter yet to be born. "For the mother who healed our hearts," William said as he fastened it around her neck. As January arrived with its crisp, cold clarity, Emma stood in the nursery they were preparing for their daughter. The walls were painted a soft sage green, the crib assembled, stuffed animals arranged on shelves. On the wall hung a special photograph, William with the twins as toddlers before the accident, beside a recent ultrasound image of their daughter. The mansion that had once echoed with silence now resonated with the sounds of life. The twins practicing piano in the living room, their voices drifting up the stairs as they argued good-naturedly about whose turn it was next. William on a conference call in his study, his deep laugh occasionally punctuating the business discussion. Mrs. Hendricks humming in the kitchen as she prepared dinner. Emma placed her hands on her belly, feeling her daughter's restless movements. "You're Coming into a house of healing, she whispered. Her family pieced together from broken parts that somehow fit perfectly together. Your brothers can't wait to meet you. Your father is already wrapped around your tiny finger. And I... Emma's voice caught. I never thought I'd have this chance. Again. The nursery door opened quietly, and Emma turned to find the twins watching her curiously. Are you talking to our sister? Aidan asked, approaching cautiously. I was, Emma smiled. Would you like to say hello? Both boys nodded eagerly, placing small hands on her belly with a gentleness that moved her deeply. Hi, baby sister, Ethan whispered. We're your brothers. We're going to teach you everything. Like how to build snowmen and read books and not be afraid of the dark, Aidan added seriously. And we'll protect you, Ethan promised. Because that's what big brothers do. William appeared in the doorway, watching the scene with undisguised emotion. And what are my 3 favorite men telling my daughter? He asked, entering the room to join them. 4 favorite men, corrected Aidan. Don't forget baby sister is listening too. My mistake, William laughed, wrapping his arms around all of them. As they stood together in the nursery dappled with winter afternoon sunlight, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A broken family, silenced by tragedy. A young woman devastated by loss. Unlikely paths converging in a moment of music and memory. There would be challenges ahead. The baby's birth, the twins starting first grade, the ongoing process of healing that would never truly be complete. But they would face it together. This patchwork family stitched together with threads of love, loss, courage, and hope. The lullaby that had first broken the silence would remain their touchstone, a melody that connected past to present, grief to joy, absence to presence. And the mansion that had once felt like a mausoleum had transformed into something far more valuable, a true home where silence, when it came, was the peaceful quiet of contentment rather than the empty echo of loss. I love you, William murmured against Emma's hair, all of you. The twins squeezed closer, making room for the baby between them all. And in that embrace was everything they had lost, everything they had found, and everything they were building together. One day, one memory, one healing moment at a time. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Emma, William, and the twins has touched your heart. For more emotional journeys like this one, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking on the link to your left. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel, give the video a thumbs up, and share what city you're watching from in the comments below. We bring unique stories that explore